everyone. It's 6 p.m. It's May 21st, 2026. Welcome to tonight's public hearing. My name is Jim Mazzacco. I'm the zoning examiner for the city of Tucson. We have two cases scheduled for the public hearing tonight, and we will take the cases as listed on the agenda. First, I'm going to make a short statement about conduct that I've been asked to make. And it goes like this. Arizona's open meeting laws provide that members of the public may attend and listen to proceedings during tonight's zoning examiner's public hearing. The rules require that no person shall interrupt the proceedings. If anyone behaves in a way that interrupts the proceedings after a warning, and this is that first warning, the zoning examiner may direct the removal of persons from the chamber and/or recess the meeting itself. As a final note, please be aware that interfering with or preventing this lawful public meeting from being carried out in an orderly manner may violate Title 13 of Arizona's revised statutes. In short, persons who comply with the rules and do not interrupt the meeting will be able to attend and listen to tonight's proceedings. But persons who disrupt or interfere with the meeting are subject to removal. Now I'll proceed with the regular information as to the zoning examiner public hearing process. As zoning examiner, I conduct rezoning hearings on behalf of the mayor and council and make findings of fact, which I put into a written report along with my recommendation, which I send to mayor and council for their consideration and for their final decision. My report will be based on the information submitted to me, which includes the application, the staff report, all written approvals and protests, all correspondence and testimony given at tonight's public hearing. I also include in the record all documents submitted to me up to the close of the public hearing. Tonight's proceedings are being recorded. I will complete a preliminary report within 5 working days after the public hearing is closed. I will then prepare a final report, which will be issued 14 days after the public hearing is closed. Anyone may request the application to be heard at a public hearing before the mayor and council if the request is filed with the city clerk within 14 days after the date of the zoning examiner's public hearing or reconsideration public hearing. The mayor and council may also decide to conduct a public hearing without a special request. If a public hearing is requested, notice must be provided in the same manner as the notice provided for the original public hearing for the case. If you'd like to receive a copy of any of the recommendations, of my recommendations or reports, you're not listed as a party of record on the case. Party of record is someone who's been notified in the mail of the case and the applicant. You can send an email to Tucson rezoning, one word, at TucsonAZ, one word, .gov, or call the City of Tucson Planning and Development Services Department. Copies will also be available from the Planning and Development Services Department's website. The mayor and after this, the mayor and council will then hear the item and then vote on the matter of an appeal or a recommendation based on my recommendation, along with other factors that they take into consideration. So normally during the public hearing, each public hearing, we have the Planning and Development Services staff speak. Then the applicant makes a presentation, and then the public may then be called to testify, and then the applicant may respond to issues. There are speaker cards at the podium or nearby. Fill out the card as requested. When I call you to testify, please speak clearly into the microphone, your testimony by stating your name and address. Try to keep your comments concise and note if a previous speaker has already made a point that you've already made. I usually give around 5 minutes, but I usually allow a little bit more time to speak, to make your point. But if some point I'm telling you, could you wrap up? That's what I'm getting at. After all parties have spoken at this point, I will close the public hearing and see if I see a reason to continue that case or hear further testimony. So for those who plan to speak, I request you stand and respond to the following. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, thank you. With that, let's begin. So the first case we're going to hear is the continued case of TP-ENT-1125-00023 East Jacaranda Way. And this was continued from the April 23rd, 2026 meeting. At that meeting, I had asked staff if they would provide me with some technical reports from some of our more engineering-oriented departments, transportation, wastewater, who else was there? The zoning administrator. What I would like, did I miss anybody? I got them all. And also the subdivision engineer I specifically wanted to hear from. And he's in the audience this evening. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to ask staff to just give a summary of a couple of the wastewater, the zoning administrator, and the Department of Transportation's comments. And then Mr. Stanley, you prepared a PowerPoint that has new information in it that the subdivision engineer wasn't able to look at before this meeting or just barely got to. So I was wondering if you would be prepared to make that presentation after the staff gives their summary, and then I can call the subdivision engineer up to give his comments in general about the project. Is that, you're fine with that, I assume? Okay, so with that, I'm going to ask staff to give their quick overviews of the reports that we received.
Thank you. So in the time between the last hearing and this continued hearing, we received more information from the Department of Transportation and Mobility, Pima County Wastewater and Reclamation Department, and the zoning administrator, as well as soliciting the assistance of one of our engineers who's here to speak. Department of Transportation and Mobility has assessed that with the proposed development, the existing roads, Tanque Verde and Bear Canyon, and the neighborhood streets are sufficient to provide an adequate level of service, and that emergency routes are unimpacted by this development. Wastewater has indicated that they have flow meters in both directions of the development that don't indicate any concerns. That in the last several years, a new 12-inch line was installed that has taken on 2/3 of the flow from one of the 8-inch lines. And the new development would still require wastewater and reclamation department review and approval before anything could be constructed. The zoning administrator has identified that in the RX1 zone, every lot is allowed up to 2 ADUs per lot, and each of those ADUs could be up to 1,000 square feet. They would also be limited to 75% of the size of the principal dwelling. So up to 1,000 square feet, but based on the size of the principal dwelling, it could be slightly less. In the time between the last hearing and this continued hearing, we received one new protest form from a property outside the 150-foot notification area. So the supermajority requirements at mayor and council would still apply.
Thank you. So wastewater has installed flow meters to monitor flow. And they have a capacity review process, is my understanding. And there is no one else in Pima County who reviews or monitors wastewater, the wastewater system other than the wastewater department of Pima County.
That's correct. They're the responsible
So we went
party.
to the right people to get the information. And they also, in their report, if I remember, they gave a recommended condition that had several points to it as to how the wastewater process, the review process for new development is reviewed. I would just say that's in there, that report, and we know that, and that could become a special condition of this rezoning, the more specific information that and recommendations that they made in their comments.
Mr. Zoning Examiner, that is correct, and is typically information they provided, those steps or further review, we usually do include that as a condition of rezoning from
Okay.
wastewater.
And the transportation comments, they're saying, if I remember correctly, Tanque Road, especially a western portion of, I think it's Bear Canyon Road, the western portion of Bear Canyon Road is at a level of service D, and then a portion eastward of Bear Path Road is level of service C. Now, level of service D, what that means, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you can mostly drive at the speed limit, but your maneuverability is more limited during heavy traffic hours, and you could be backed up where you have to come to a stop for an incident or something that's going on that's slowing you down. That there just happens to be more cars than can handle whatever is happening in front of you. That, to me, that's what a level of service D kind of represents. It's still considered an acceptable, but it's the lowest level of acceptable level of service. That one, yeah.
Mr. Zoning Examiner, that's correct. The report back that they wrote was that the Tucson designs their roadways and intersections to operate at the level of service of D or better.
Okay. The other piece of information that I found on by myself, I looked at the Bear Canyon neighborhood plan, and that was done in 1984. And Tanque Verde Road was 2 lanes, and the Houghton Road hadn't been built yet with the bridge. So we're talking 41 years into the future that we're at right now. And also I looked at Plan Tucson, and there is a condition, a transportation condition that states that level of service D is the acceptable level of service for major roadways in the city. Is that what you understand?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that those pieces of information were available to everyone. Okay. With that, I think we've covered wastewater to a degree, transportation. On the accessory dwelling units. It's my understanding that this is part of an effort by the state that states that accessory dwelling units must be allowed to be the same height as the primary dwelling unit. And, and that you can have 2 on a lot of certain sizes. Correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Okay, so that's something that is a state requirement, not only a city requirement. City has the same requirement because it's abiding by the state requirement.
That's correct. So the city was a little ahead of the curve on the ADU adoption, and then the state requirements came into effect afterward, kind of superseding some of our provisions. But yeah, we do comply with the state requirements now.
And the person who wrote the report on the ADU as part of the package of technical reports was the zoning administrator. And the zoning administrator is an official interpreter of the zoning code that is called out in state statutes.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so I think we've covered those 3. Now I'd like to switch to the subdivision review. And Mr. Stanley, you have submitted a new PowerPoint that has new information in it. Would you be prepared to give that presentation? And then I can ask Mr. Blood to come up and talk about it.
Mr. Examiner, Jeff Stanley, I live at 200 East Yvonne, Tucson. So I put this PowerPoint together and it's going to be a little redundant because I didn't know we were going to speak about sewer and traffic, but at the beginning of it, this is an aerial of the existing site. And this is our updated preliminary development plan. We made a few changes, made a couple of basins smaller, shifted them a little bit. And you can see the sewer on there. I don't know if I can point it out, but half the sewer, half the new lots to the east, those 6 will sewer into existing sewer in Bear's Path. And then the other 6 lots will go into Little Bear. And they will, on this map they get together, you can see west of the site, there's where they had the problems before. The wastewater has since fixed. They redid the manholes, they repaired a line, they did the offsite line you were talking about, and they have a maintenance and flow management type schedule that they work on. So to not go any farther than that, since we already talked about it, this is a letter here that we were speaking about. It says what they've done in the past. Yes, sir.
Mr. Stanley, did you see the conditions that the technician did?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any problem with those conditions?
No. It's
Okay.
standard. Okay, so then this is the letter. These are the 2 capacity letters that I received from wastewater saying that we have capacity to connect to the sewer. One of them is for the west half and the other is for the east half. So they're saying that we have there's capacity for our project. I also looked at drainage a little more. This map kind of shows the site and the larger area where the drainage is coming from. You see the big blue line on the bottom. That's the Tanque Verde wash. That's about 1,700 feet south of the project. And then if you look closer, you can see a couple of washes that skirt the project site. I'll show this more in a second. So this is the FEMA map for the wash. It shows the extents of the floodplain for the Tanque Verde wash. You can see on that red dot, that's where our project is. And it just skirts the southwest corner of our project. And if you look, all the houses that are south of the project, except for Laura Harsh's house, are inside that floodplain. And that floodplain does cross her property. Then we have 2 local washes. This is these green lines on there are the watershed boundaries. Those are the areas that show where the drainage comes from. And there's 2 there. The larger one is to the north. That's the Feringer Wash, and that has it's 115 acres of drainage to it, and it has 555 CFS that pass the site. There's also a smaller wash to the south, to 42 acres, and it drains near the site. It crosses Bear's Path just south of our project, just at Mr. Harsh's property line. So that's got 221 CFS that crosses there. This is just another map kind of, you can see the blue lines. The blue line on the top is the Feringer Wash. That's the county's way of showing washes on their website. And then on the south, you can see the other local wash. This is even a little closer. So you can see the Feringer Wash crosses over north of the site, crosses the northwest corner of our site. And the one to the south, the local wash crosses to the south on the southwest corner. Basically drains in the same area that the Tanque Verde floodplain is. So again, there's 115 acres watershed to the north and 42 acres to the south. And our site also drains into those. This is just an aerial. Again, same thing, showing the blue lines or the washes, Beringer Wash to the north and the local wash to the south. So here's our development plan, our revised preliminary development plan. One thing to note is the basins are all in common areas. I think that wasn't clear before. They're not part of the lot. They're in a common area. So the HOA will have to take care of those. After our last meeting, I met with Laura Harsh out at her property, which is just to the south of the big basin, kind of in there. Do I need to point that out, or we're okay?
I can see it.
Okay. So her concerns were the size of the basin and the water coming out of the basin and dewatering of her. She has mesquite trees west of her house that she likes to get the water to. I understand that. So she was concerned with that. So since then, after meeting with her, I went back and I was able to reduce the size of that basin, and I moved it over to the west a little bit. I also moved the basin east of her house to the east a little bit, and then I'll talk a little more about that in a second, about her basins. But this map here shows the dark lines are the watershed boundaries of the project. So in between those is where it drains out. So we have 4 basically going to the south and 2 going to the north. So those are the values on that map are the existing conditions, flow rates. For instance, watershed 2 there with a circle and 2 in it. The Q100 is 13.7. Q10 is 5.6, and the Q2 is 1.8. So those numbers are pretty small compared to the 555 CFS and the Fahringer and the 221 to the south. So those are the numbers we have to start with. And then this map shows the developed condition rates. So the watersheds are essentially same except for a little change at the roadway. And it has the values on there of what we have to match. Those new values are 15% less than the existing values. Those are our target values.
Mr. Stanley, can I ask a
Yes, sir.
question?
Yeah.
So the placement of the basins
Mhm.
is not haphazard. It is dependent on the topography and how the property naturally drains. Is that how it works?
Correct. Correct.
So that's why you picked these particular sites, is that correct?
Right.
But the actual size and shape of them, that level of detail needs to be decided at a later date when you're getting more into the engineering of them and design of them. Is that correct?
Essentially, I have actually I'm a reporter there that I have actually gone through the design of those basins, how much is in there and how much comes out, with the target goal of 15% less.
So what you have right now is pretty close to what you would be presenting to the city when you submit your paperwork for review.
Pretty close. I'm going to
Pretty close.
take another. I've only looked at the one basin, so I'm going to look at the others and see how I can shrink those as well.
Okay.
So again, the numbers on there, like for watershed 2, it's 11.8 in 100 years. That's 15% less than the 13.7 that it came in. So all those numbers on there are the target discharges for our requirements. There seemed to be a question last time is what these basins, go ahead.
Could you explain for a layperson, when you're saying target discharges, what does that mean?
Well, that's the flow rate that I have to hit to be 15% less.
Okay, and that
Okay.
15% less means there is a number set, a baseline set for how the property drains in its natural state, correct?
Correct.
So that 15%, you have to be 15% more efficient than the natural drainage that's occurring right now. Is that right?
Essentially sufficient or whatever. That's what we're allowed, that's what we're mandated to.
So that's
To discharge.
that's a city regulation.
Right.
Okay.
For this particular area, they call it critical basin. So a critical basin, you have to reduce the flow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So there seemed to be a question of with everybody for what these look like. And they're earthen basins, 3-to-1 slopes, and they do not, they typically have a riprap spillway, something to control the flow so against erosion on the basin. So like I said, 3-to-1 sides, and we're managed to, by landscaping, when we do the development stuff, we have to hydroseed those basins. So this slide shows a hydroseed mix that was typically in landscape and on the basin, and then on the right side is the plants themselves, what they look like.
Mr. Stanley,
Yes.
Is there any kind of area of the basins that are just plain concrete?
There's no just plain concrete. And I'll show you in a second in a couple of slides. We have to control where the water comes out of that. So the water will build up and it goes over a spillway or something, and that has to be fixed. So grouted riprap, or typically use grouted riprap, something that'll won't erode away.
And riprap refers to a kind of rock that's bound by metal. Is that?
No, that would be gabions. Riprap would be just concrete grouted in
Okay.
place.
Okay.
So that's one of the options anyway. So this is my attempt to make this kind of show what it looks like. The top one is a plan view of that basin, and with plants scattered around it try to simulate what it would be when the hydroseed takes place. So hydroseed, when it rains and the plants grow, that's what it's going to look like. The bottom is a profile of that outlet weir. That in this case is a berm right there, and so we have to fill that up. You can see in the middle of the little U-shaped area. That's where the riprap is there to control the flow, so the water comes out there. And then we have a splash pad. In this case, typically in these basins, we're required to store what they call the first flush, which is the first half-inch of rainfall. And the basin typically will hold 9 inches of water. So after it ponds 9 inches, it raises up, then it starts coming out that spillway. So after a rain period, then there would be potentially 9 inches of rain there. In response to my meeting with Laura, where she wants that rainfall to help, she's doing some water harvesting in mesquite trees around there. She wants that water for that. So in my meeting with Mr. Blood and the other day, he agreed that I could put a low flow pipe in there so that whatever the 9 inches will pond, but then there's a pipe there that the water will bleed out. So the basin won't stay full. It'll drain out. And then Laura can take that water and direct it to where she wants to on her little water harvesting tree wells and stuff like that. Right, so that basically limits the amount of time that water is going to stand there. Okay. This next one is just I tried to put it over an aerial. It's a little difficult to see, but it's just the same slide, but that area, we got, on the sides, the hydroseeded plants, and then a couple of mesquite trees in the middle of it. Following my meeting with Laura, she sent me this green infrastructure manual. I looked through that. And I talked with Mr. Blood about it as far as the goal was to see if we can do some water harvesting on the lots above her. And we basically can't use that. We can't use water that's ponded on a private property towards our basin requirements. So in other words, the hope is that that would reduce the size of the basin, but that part, it can't work by code. Okay, so we did take part of this though, and on the roadway cross section, we're going to put inside the right of way, we're going to have little water harvesting basins. So the water will run off the road and collect in the little swale there to help reduce some runoff. That's basically one of the in this green infrastructure. That's one of the ways they do it. You see a lot around in the city. So. It is just basically reiterating the drainage requirements. You got to capture the first half inch. We can only pond up to 9 inches in the basins for retention, and then we have to reduce the flow by 15% for the critical basin. This is before I know you guys were going to talk about it. This is that letter they were discussing regarding traffic and some drainage stuff. So I think we already spoke about that. So that's what I have, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Stanley. We're going to ask Mr. Blood to come up now, and maybe we can keep the PowerPoint up if he wants to use it or not.
Sure. Stephen Blood, I'm the section manager of engineering and landscape review at the City of Tucson. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, sorry. Stephen Blood, I'm the section manager of engineering and landscape review at the City of Tucson. So a couple of things that I reviewed a lot of this with the designer, with Jeff, and a couple of key points he kind of pointed out, I just wanted to reiterate, maybe elaborate on. So the site, as you saw, he depicted the watersheds. They're all relatively small, and the spine road of the proposed development kind of goes up the ridge to High Point, and that's why he has the location of the basins where they are. The topography of the site kind of dictates that the water's going to drain downhill, be collected in the basin before it leaves the site. And when it comes to drainage design, what the city requires is that the developer come up with a solution that what we call doesn't adversely impact any of the neighbors, any of the surrounding properties, because what we want to see is something that is not going to create flooding or erosion or any other type of adverse impacts to the surrounding properties. And so, and the fact, and he mentioned it's also that the whole area is in what we call a critical basin area, which is an area designated by the city that we know that there's known flooding issues. And so we require new development to not only meet the balanced basin detention requirement, but also an additional 15% reduction. And he kind of touched on that, but that's basically saying the normal balance basin is that the peak discharges that leave the site, which just means during your major storm event, you'll have, there's a period of that storm event where you're going to have your peak flow flowing off of an area, right? And so we're concerned about that peak flow because that's what causes flooding and erosion and, bad things from happening. And so we look at that peak flow discharge, and when it's in a critical basin, we require that to be reduced by 15%. So that's what the critical basin is. And so his basins, and we'll look at that when he submits his drainage report that has the hydrology of existing conditions and then the hydraulics of what's going to happen after development has been proposed and put in place. But all that drainage will come down, go into these basins that he's designed, and detain that water long enough to slow it down to flatten that hydrograph curve of peak discharge, which means that he's basically holding it, detaining it long enough, and slowly letting it out so that you don't have a gush, large amount of water leaving the site, causing flooding, causing erosion. And so that's our basic criteria. That's our design. That's what we require. And from what I've seen so far, it looks like that's what is being proposed.
Mr. Blood, the care of the basins, how they're working and whether they're being taken care of, how does that work?
Right, it's a good point. So what we require is anytime there's a proposed detention or retention basin on a project, we require that those basins in a subdivision like this, they're required to be outside of private property. It needs to be in common area that's owned and maintained by an association. So we have an entity that we can be in contact with to ensure that it's being maintained, because if those basins were to fail, then there's nothing stopping, that adverse impact from happening. And so not only do we have a requirement that the basins are owned and maintained by an association, but also that we have annual inspections on those basins by the city of Tucson. So they're actually mapped in Map GIS from the city of Tucson, and there's annual inspections tagged to them. So every year we'll send out an inspector. They'll go and take a look at the basin. If there's debris in there, if there's sediment buildup, if there's weeds overgrown or trees blocking flows, that kind of stuff. If the weir is broken or the riprap is deteriorated, we will note it and we will flag it as either poor or fair, and we give the association, we send them a letter and we give them so many days, depending on the condition, to repair them and fix them, and then we'll schedule a reinspection. We'll go back out there and check to make sure it's happened. Because like I said, if those basins aren't functioning, then that drainage design doesn't work.
So let's say a basin doesn't function or it fails or something like that. The responsibility of that, and if it affects an adjoining property, how is that structured into the subdivision process?
Well, it would, because it's owned and maintained by the association, it would fall back onto the HOA as being, responsible legally. And so
the city is not responsible. City is not held responsible for a failure of a basin.
no, all plats have a hold harmless clause that we put on it, so that we're not tied to that. We're in charge of the inspections and ensuring that, we reach out and make sure that they're maintaining these basins. But if something were to happen, it would fall back on that association.
Okay. Well, I think you've done a great job, Mr. Blood, in answering my questions. And I think, Mr. Stanley, do you have anything that you want to say that you wanted to add reference to what Mr. Blood said, or you're good with that? Okay. Okay, well, Mr. Blood, I hope you stay for a little bit longer in case we have other questions.
Sure.
But at this point, we've had a staff report. We've had the applicant give a presentation, and we've had kind of an overview of some of the technical reviews that I requested from staff to bring to this particular case. And with that, we'll go to the public to speak. And let me see if I have my list here. Okay. First is there anybody representing a neighborhood association, like a president or someone like that? Would you mind being the first speaker?
Thank you, sir. My name is Tom Adding. I spoke last month. I am the president of the Bear Canyon Neighborhood Association and living at 2449 North Lightning Aid Drive in Tucson. A couple of additional points that to make tonight that I did not make last month because of some information in. Excuse me. Here, let me start with the first, my first concern. Very interesting that I'm hearing this now from Mr. Blood on the responsibility for basins. So I'm trying to get this straight and let me understand. The developer goes and builds these retention basins for a development opposed by a large number of homeowners. Then it's built, and then the responsibility for cleaning these is given over to an HOA or a neighborhood association. Is that right? That does not sound right to me at all. That's the first time I've ever heard of that.
Mr. Blood, do you want to respond to that question?
Yes. So that's the question is that the process is when a subdivision is proposed and there's retention or detention basins proposed, yes, they're owned and maintained by the association that's formed as the plat is being platted. And so
Even when the association speaks to the zoning examiner, potentially to the mayor and council and saying, we're opposed to this for these reasons. You turn them over and then becomes the HOA responsibility. That just does not sound logical to my mind.
wait, what HOA is opposed? I mean, the HOA hasn't been formed yet.
Still in the area of the Bear Canyon Neighborhood Association. So it's mentioned associations and HOAs.
Okay, so you're talking about the
This
surrounding.
area, Bear Canyon, Bear Path.
Excuse me, can you speak in? I'm sorry, I have two people, so you both
Sure.
still have to use the microphone.
Right. Yes, the Bear Path community that's speaking here today is one of 12 communities, some HOAs, some not HOAs. They're part of the broader Bear Canyon Neighborhood Association. As zoning examiner mentioned, it has a Bear Canyon Neighborhood Plan formed and actually signed with the city in November of 1984. And since that time, especially in the last 4 years, there were very little changes that were done prior to the last 4 years. In that time, there have been a substantial number of efforts to take a normally suburban community and turn it into urban sprawl and put a whole lot more non-suburban effort into this area, where the association has also abutted to a scenic highway. So we've gone from urban, suburban, scenic highway to urban light, scenic highway. That's my view. And this is just something else because this becomes something that just does not make any sense. Sure.
And Mr. Blood, if you could see if I'm getting this right. The HOA you're referring to is treated like a property owner. The subdivision has two kinds of property owners. Each lot is owned by a property owner and the common areas are owned by the HOA. They each are given a parcel number, just like the individual properties have a parcel number under the assessor's office. So the assessor's office sees the HOA as the property owner of the common areas, and the individual lots, those property owners have an assessor's number and they're the property owners of their property. Did I say anything incorrect there?
No, that's correct. And it's that owner, that association that would be liable and maintaining those basins.
Right,
That's
and
correct.
they have to hire the contractors to come in and clean the basins. They have to hire the attorneys or whomever, if there is a failure, to handle the case. They're treated just like a regular property owner.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
You know, I'll have more to say outside this community at another time. The next concern that I have has to do with flooding. The developer talked about the floodplain and the challenges that can come with this community. He talked about the drainage and all, but there's a two-way flood problem with this community. You do have drainage that comes from the Farringer Wash to the north. But you have, and as was described by the developer, you have part of the floodplain from the Tanqueverde Creek that actually crosses the southwest portion of Ms. Larrabee's property, very close to where the rest of this development is going to be. And the biggest challenge that I have in my background is I'm a degree meteorologist. I have been looking at this for, the whole process here in Northeast Tucson for 10 years. But I've been doing this business between meteorologists and hydrologists for over 55 years. I have looked at the flood zones and the challenges we have in this part of the city. You have the Agua Caliente Wash that comes down from the Catalinas. You have the Tanqueverde Wash that comes in from the from the Rincons, and then they merge on the southeastern side of Bear Canyon Neighborhood Association. And when they merge, they have a lot more flow coming in that area. And where is the strongest flow coming? To the south of Lakes at Castle Rock and right to the south of Bears Path here is an accelerated flow. And when you have peak flow, and we have the types of floods that we have had, substantially more in the last 5 years than we've had in the past, and I can list a number of those, the danger of that wash, then a roaring river overflowing and coming into this area is very high. So that needs to be looked at as a double flood problem and the impact that can be done there. Because most of these people already have or will need flood insurance. I've seen the Fermet flood insurance rate map of Fermet. It's because they haven't done an update and it's not been necessary unless typically you have a conditional letter of map revision, a CLOMR, when you have to do that. Probably not necessary here, but if you had to, a firm flood rate insurance map would be done, and flood insurance rate map. And so that is a problem that still I've not heard a good solution to that, and the risk of flooding in this area I would rate as high. Now, that leads to a third item, because having worked worked with the city to understand better the challenges at Casita Village on the east side of Bear Canyon Neighborhood Association. In that area, close to, adjacent to, or in a floodplain, Trinity Westlands conducted an almost, in fact, a 10-month study of assessing the presence of Native American remains. And it's a very lengthy effort for the Casita Village. This area, in my mind, in Casita Village, about 19 acres. This area of development, about 11 acres. My question is there been any plan, assessment to get someone like Trinity Westlands, who the city used for the oil, to look at this here?
Can I ask staff that question?
Sure.
Staff, you have prepared a set of conditions. Is there any condition that takes this into consideration, finding of artifacts and remains?
Yes, so there is a standard condition on rezonings as far as contacting the Historic Preservation Office if any artifacts are found, and contacting the Arizona State Museum if there are any discovered human remains.
Okay.
So that is, the historic review is part of the development process.
Okay, if this goes forward as a subdivision plat, that would be something that would be addressed at some point.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, that's the answer I was hoping I would hear, because that's a condition that I would have expected, given the similarity in these two areas. And let's see, let me get to the last one on that. And the last is the traffic study. And this goes to the concerns that I've been dealing with since the time I first worked with Bear Canyon Neighborhood Association and then became the president. And that is, I see individual traffic studies, but I don't see a system traffic study. If any of you today drive from Adobe Vet east on Tanque Verde and go to Houghton and then turn south and go down to Speedway, there are a number of traffic studies that have probably been done individually. You know, in the last 5 months, we've had the work of all the sewage lines being dug on the north side of Tanque Verde to just east of the Tanque Verde Lutheran Church, and then the sewer lines going up to the Mason Ranch Apartments, which really are more county than they are city, but they have substantially impacted the traffic in Bear Canyon Neighborhood Association. That was, again, supposed to have been completed in March, and then to May. It was supposed to be completed by Memorial Day. Well, that's Monday, and that's not going to be done then. At the same time, they started building Mr. Car Wash, which was approved 2 years ago. It's coming in August, and they're already starting to develop. And then we already had Circle K, who is building their one of 5 different developments or destructions within the Bear Canyon Neighborhood Association, or just south. Circle K, that means the development on corner of Tanque Verde and Houghton is already well underway. And then if you go another development that's been proposed and has been heard by the rezoning examiner before, and that's La Roca Vista. That is a 5-acre lot just on the east side of Tanque Verde Acres, which is one that we've had a discussion. I've had a discussion about a deceleration lane if you have to do that. And then shortly, Circle K is applying for another Circle K at the intersection of Tanque Verde and Catalina Highway. And then with the intention of closing down the Circle K at Tanque Verde and Bear Canyon. And then there's also the Circle K they want to take down by Tanque Verde Loop and to use those gas pumps at the one on Catalina Highway. Then you go south, and not only did you have the traffic study for Circle K at Tanque Verde and Houghton, then you have the traffic study for the Casitas of La Mariposa. Then you go down to the Circle K at Speedway and Houghton, and then that says, oh, we're going to close that down, but we're not going to do it for 3 years. That whole less than 3 mile stretch is going to be under a tremendous amount of traffic, not to include anything that has to do with the schools getting out at Sabino High School and the rest of Normal Road. A tremendous amount of traffic. I've not seen any traffic study that addresses that in toto. It's all individual pieces. And I think as a systems engineer as well, that hurts my head. I would look to the city to look at that in total and do the studies at the peak.
I'm going to ask you to start winding up. We have a lot of
Sure.
speakership.
I'm addressing the major points.
Okay.
You asked me to come up and speak as the
Sure.
president. Those are the
Sure.
ones you're going to hear. Specifics on the others, but those are the big ones that I see, taking a look at the totality of Bear Canyon Neighborhood Association and one of our 12 communities within that. Thank you
Okay.
very much for your time.
Okay, thank you for coming forward. The next speaker is Laura Harsh. I hope I pronounced that correct.
Hi, thank you. I'm Laura Harsh. I reside at 8951 East Bears Path Road. I just want to thank you, Mr. Zoning Examiner, for extending the hearing so you could better understand our concerns. We really do appreciate your complete thoroughness on this. Last night I was thinking about what I was going to speak on, and I think you've heard a lot about the flooding, you've heard a lot about the traffic, the basins, the nonconformity, all of those things. And I was trying to think of what I would speak on, and I was feeling kind of down because of a conversation I had earlier yesterday with a city official who, when I was asking about the possibility, separate even from what's happening with the rezoning, the possibility of getting a flashing crosswalk across Tanque between Bears Path Road and the casitas across the street from us, because there's an elementary school boy over there that has to cross Tanque every day to catch the bus in our neighborhood. The response that I got from him was, we don't want to install flashing crosswalks because that encourages people to walk out into traffic. And I was kind of shocked by that response because, A, people are going to walk anyways, but this was a child. And this child doesn't have a choice about crossing Tanque to get to the bus. But that was the response. And it's just, it made me realize that is kind of the same sort of pat responses that we're getting for traffic reports, for the sewer status, like any of those sorts of things. It's just, we've done our calculations and everything should be A-okay. Like the number of cars that are being added is a small number and it's not going to affect anything. Like we're aware of that. We know there's construction going on. We know there's traffic in the area and the traffic is going to be heavy. But I feel like all of these officials with all of these reports are missing the point, like completely missing the point. We have no emergency access, ingress or egress out of our neighborhood. And not only in case of a catastrophic emergency, but like 2 weeks ago when the gas line was hit, traffic was stopped for hours in both directions. There never would have been able to get an ambulance into our neighborhood if that were needed. Like Chuck Baumgart down the street from us, who died last year, the ambulance came monthly for him. That would not have been able to happen. So those are the things that we're talking about. It's not, oh, there's going to be 51 more trips or however many coming out of the neighborhood. There's no way to get in and out. The sewer still is a problem. They would not come and monitor it at all of those spots monthly if it were not a problem. It's clearly a problem. The Browns still have sewer backing up into their recessed tubs in their house. That's 2 doors down from me. So there's clearly still issues that are happening, but I feel like it's just being dismissed because somebody's sitting at their computer looking at something and doing some calculations. They're working at this 30,000 foot level and not coming down to really where we are and seeing what's happening. The basins, yes, I'm sure they're great and will capture water, but that is mainly sheet runoff that comes off of that property that is sustaining all of us. There are flooding issues in some definite channeled areas where it comes through when the rain is super heavy, but when it's not, it's coming as a sheet and sustaining the entire neighborhood. If we're putting in basins that are capturing like less than 6,000 square feet now, thank you for looking at that, I appreciate that. But still it's capturing water that now is not going to come to us. So it'll help when there's that catastrophic event, but not just on the regular day-to-day. I think I was feeling kind of despondent about all this, trying to figure out what I would do. And like at that same time, like the nighthawks started coming up. I don't know if you know what nighthawks are, but they're birds that nest on the ground and they come out at night and they hunt at night. And they nest in open spaces like on Miss Larrabee's property. I'm sure you've seen them. They're amazing. They're beautiful to come out. They're very acrobatic and catch bugs. And I was reminded that this is a very strong riparian zone. And, we get birds all the time. We had Oriole at our feeder just the other morning, bluebirds. We've had a blue-footed booby come through our yard. Hawks, so many varieties of hawks, including like a prairie hawk, which is extremely rare in this area, and it comes regularly. There's all of that that's just going to be gone. And when I was sitting here thinking about all of this, like all I could think was like, why? This is for 6 houses. Why would we risk flooding of our neighborhood, risk damage to our property, risk all of our, many of our mesquites and our bosques dying from the water not arriving to it anymore? Why would we put neighbors that have gone through crazy PTSD about flooding from sewers, flooding from the shopping center above us? Like, they're still dealing with that years into this. And to have an HOA take care of a basin, that's great in theory, but we've been trying to deal with that with the shopping center for decades. It's just like there's nobody to take care of these things. And you can send a letter all you want to an HOA, but it doesn't do anything if there's no teeth behind it. So, I mean, I don't understand. I can't understand why we would do this for 6 houses. It's 12 parcels. She's only planning to sell 6 of them. Like, this is something that could be potentially catastrophic to our neighborhood, to the character of our neighborhood, to our properties, for 6 houses. It makes no sense to me. So I really, previously when I was like, I think I can get around this, get my head around it if we have some conditions, I can't anymore. And this, again, I really appreciate you looking at the basins, but I really request that you please do not approve this rezoning. It just has so much potential for so much catastrophic events in our neighborhood. And we'd like to not have that anymore. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Okay, this gentleman lives at 1352 East King Road. I know his first name's Thomas, but I can't read the last name. I'm sorry? Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay, Lisa Irvin.
Good evening. My name's Lisa Irvin. I live at 8741 East Little Bear. The area I live in is northwest, adjacent to where they're going to try to rezone. Sure. Is that better? Okay. So I am concerned over the basins. Again, I feel like what Laura mentioned about, them being properly designed and maintained. If they do fail, there's a good chance that it will flood the wash. The wash is on my property. And last year, it was up to maximum capacity. And if there, continues to be more of an issue of this going on, it will, and they fail, they will flood the wash and into my property, into my house. So that's a big concern of mine, of course. As Laura mentioned, the sewer systems, every time I take my dog for a walk just around the corner near Nancy's house, there is a sewer smell consistently. And as Nancy mentioned, that had just was it last month or 2 months ago? Yeah, that she had sewage backing up into her shower and bath. And I mean, these are things that in our neighborhood need to be remedied before we add to the problem. And I agree with Laura. For some reason, I'm not sure why, but the city thinks that we need to have a Circle K and a Mr. Car Wash within every 3 blocks. And you're adding to the light pollution of the city. You're degrading the beauty of Tanque Verde. These right into Tucson has everything you need, but they keep wanting to build out and out. The traffic is horrible. Trying to get across there is just it's almost scary trying to get to work in the mornings, trying to get out. You have to pull in the middle, especially even with the construction, it's worse. And you're just keeping adding and adding to the problem. So these are basically the kind of the concerns that I have is the additional flooding and the degrading of the beauty of the property, and also the two-story homes that have been brought up as far as being possibility that won't fit within the neighborhood that we have. And I would just find that unfortunate. And I guess that's about all I'd like to add. Thank you for your time.
And thank you. So, here we go. Well, it's 8800 Jacaranda Way, but I can't reach her name. It could be Christina, I'm not sure. Do you know who I'm getting at? Katrina? Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, if you, we don't have to discuss this. You actually can come up and speak, you know. And you can state your name, and that's even better, because then I don't have to read it.
We were so late and I was like, whoa. Anyway, sorry to.
Okay.
Hi, thank you so much. My name's Katrina Trevor, and my spouse and I live at 8755 East Bears Path Road, within 150 feet of the Larrabee property. We've been there 16 years. We moved to this area believing that the BCMP agreement would hold and that it would be respected. And this has to do with encouraging and stabilizing the character of our neighborhood. And so I did leave my So I had some figures that I wanted to show you. This is really about preserving the one-story character of our neighborhood. And this is a promise, or basically well, we felt like it was a promise when we originally bought into this area. And this, what I show you on the first figure is a figure of all the one-story homes in our area. If you look at this, there's the Jacaranda property. All the casitas on the Jacaranda property are one story. Every home in this area is one story. And you can see all the way down to, there's the guest ranch off of Woodland. It is low profile. The commercial property is low profile. The casitas across the road on Tanque Verde, they are all one story. And so we are asking, again, that we have a 16-foot limit to the height. And on the next figure that I show you is actually a representation of what it looks like. It's figure 2 of me standing next to my 11-foot high house and me standing next to a telephone pole that's right there on the property. And you could see 30 feet is huge. These homes are going to be monstrous. They're going to dwarf the rest of the neighborhood. So again, we're
Can I
asking.
ask you a question?
Yes.
Why did you pick 16 feet? Was there a particular reason?
No, we kind of discussed 16 to 20 feet, something like that. But to keep it as a one story. And when you consider that the ADUs can also be 30 feet, you're looking at monstrous homes that are basically dwarfing all the houses around it. I might add, it's on the map, the building map, all the houses around it are 12 feet. There is one house that's a little bit of a bi-level that's not too far away, but it's from the front of the house, it's definitely one story.
Do you know how tall the tallest one-story house is in your neighborhood by any chance?
Yeah.
Someone's going to speak to
So
that?
I think he's going to speak to that.
Okay.
But I just wanted to give you a sense of what 30 feet looks like around, surrounded by all these classic one-story Tucson neighborhood that we have. I would like to address a couple of things, and I think we've already talked about this, but my issue is whether we can trust the city and trust an HOA to take care of these basins. These basins are huge. And I have another figure there. I think it's on figure two, that kind of shows what the water flow is like in our neighborhood. It's the one with the blue arrows. And the concern is that we're already overwhelmed with water in our neighborhood. During a storm, it is pretty outrageous what happens. So you not only have, this is our concern about city design, etc. If you look at the commercial hardscape, you can see water flows. It's designed, virtually designed to pour onto Bear Canyon, to pour onto Bears Path Road. It's also designed to come down into people's property. There's been a lot of damage in that area of the behind people's homes. Then all the water comes down Bears Path. It also comes down East Little Bear, down to Farringer Wash. And you have all this water gathering at the base of the Farringer Wash in front of some people's homes, actually. So if you look at the Jacaranda property, and if you stand there in our neighbor's backyard and look up, it literally goes up. So this water is pouring, has a potential to pour off this property and pour down, and again heads toward East Little Bears Path Road. So we're really asking that there is consideration and some stipulations made about these basins. We've talked about what we felt was inadequate design, who's responsible for it. We've also had issues with Ms. Larrabee regarding her property. There have been numerous complaints about maintenance, etc. The question is, who's going to maintain the basins on the property that she will retain? And that's an issue. Mosquito control is huge. We all know this in our area. So we're going to have these 7 huge basins around the perimeter of this property that's going to have mosquitoes. We also might add, as some of us have been discussing, the El Nino this year is supposed to be really bad. There is going to be a lot of wetness throughout the Southwest. So we have to be concerned about that. We also want to make sure that we understand there's a need for, and I think this is discussed a bit by Jeff, regarding semi-permeable hardscape. If we're going to have hardscape there, it needs to be gravel or something else. The other thing is the sewers, and we've already kind of talked about this, but in terms of the property, the Jacaranda property, there's a 6-inch line up in the northwest corner and an 8-inch line in the southeast corner that this is to feed into. So we are in an 8-inch line, and there's the other 6-inch line. The Larrabee property, I understand, is going to add some individual residences to that sewer system, and we're going to add the other 6 homes that are going to be on the other side. So we feel that we are at capacity. And so I don't need to belabor that, but we've talked about it. These lines are from 1965. We had a horrendous tragic accident or whatever in 2001, that huge amount of litigation around that. We also still have litigation, and it's what Laura said, all the water coming off the hardscape from the commercial property. So we believe we have to have some guarantee about the sewer capacity before rezoning takes place. The traffic impact, and I understand, and I sort of looked at this this is a handbook from the Florida DOT that's used by a lot of cities, I assume, where they have all sorts of calculations and way to figure these things out. But LOSD really means we're pretty much at our maximum. But the other thing that this handbook talks about is managing the intersections and the ability to access. So if you look at, I think my 3rd figure on there, is that the biggest issue here is the intersection at Bear Canyon and Tanque Verde. We've already talked about, we have casitas across the way. We have Mr. Car Wash going in. We have a gas station actually on the corner of Bear Canyon Road right there. We have the Mason Ranch properties, and the apartments there. So this whole intersection is an absolute mess already. We can't get out, people can't get in, and we've had accidents, unfortunately fatalities. So we've really got to think about how we're going to design and what we're going to do about this, because we can't get in and we can't get out. And this is a huge issue, and I don't have to belabor it anymore. So thank you so much for listening. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. It's the same name again. So there's two Katrina, here.
One is that a couple of neighbors have asked us to read letters for them. We do that?
I can't hear you.
Oh, two of the neighbors have asked that we read letters for them. Can we do that?
Sure.
This is someone who lives in the neighborhood.
So you still have to identify yourself.
Sure. My name is Stacy Renner, and I reside at 8755 East Bears Path Road. And I'm reading, our neighbor had a little tragedy with one of her horses, and she wasn't able to attend tonight. So she asked if we could read this letter for her.
Okay.
All right. My name is Julie Tabor, and I am a resident and property owner in the Bears Path and Tinka Verde equestrian area. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today because this rezoning is not just about density numbers. On paper, it is about safety, character, and survival of one of the last truly rural equine communities in this part of Tucson. This area is unique. Families here have invested decades preserving horse properties, maintaining wash corridors, caring for livestock, and protecting the open rural character that defines Tinka Verde. And if you ever get a chance to go down there, it's beautiful. All right, that was my opinion.
Okay.
Many of us did not move here for suburban density. We moved here because this is one of the few remaining places where horses, livestock, and rural living still coexist with the natural desert environment. What concerns me most is that infrastructure and emergency access in this area are already falling under existing conditions. The sewer system serving the neighborhood is outdated and vulnerable. My concern is not hypothetical. My family personally experienced a catastrophic sewer failure when approximately 15,000 gallons of raw sewage entered our home. We suffered severe contamination, property damage, and lasting impacts from the event. That failure occurred with the current density levels. I have been in communication with the Pima County Regional Wastewater Reclamation Department and believe their response is in theory, and I remain unconvinced since the 3 8-inch lines that flow into 1 8-inch line where the failure occurred is unchanged. If they are certain the system can handle the additional capacity, why do they continue to scope and flush? They do that about every month. Equally important is the floodplain and evacuation concern. Our neighborhood sits within the FEMA floodplain, and during major storm events, our exits become impassable. Residents here are not only evacuating cars, we are responsible for horses, livestock trailers, elderly animals, therapy horses, and in many cases, multi-area properties with limited maneuverability. When washes rise, we become trapped. There is currently no reliable all-weather evacuation route for this equine community. That means if there is a flood emergency, wildfire, or infrastructure failure, hundreds of animals and residents could be left with no safe exit. And I think the gas line was proof of that recently. This community is also home to Therapeutic Riding of Tucson, where therapy horses are boarded and cared for. These are not disposable properties or empty parcels. This is a living equestrian community with real people, animals, responsibilities that cannot simply be evacuated in minutes. Under Tucson Code Section 26-1.4, the city has a duty to avoid approving uses that create hazards to public safety. I do not believe increasing density is a trapped. I do not believe, sorry, it went silent on me. I do not believe that increasing density, I lost my place, I'm sorry, in a trapped floodplain area without a formal evacuation and egress plan is consistent with that obligation. There is also the daily safety reality of Tancaverity Road. Residents towing horse trailers already struggle to safely enter and exit traffic. The roadway is becoming increasingly dangerous because of the cumulative high-density projects throughout the corridor, combined with commercial development and constant heavy construction traffic. The issue is not just the single rezoning application in isolation. It is the cumulative impact of repeated density increases on infrastructure that was never designed for this level of urbanization. Residents in this area have worked hard to preserve one of Tucson's remaining equestrian corridors. Once this character is lost, it cannot be recreated. High-density rezoning may benefit developers financially, but the long-term burden falls on the existing residents who absorb the flooding risks, traffic dangers, infrastructure failures, and the loss of rural safety. I respectfully ask that the rezoning be denied. Best regards, Julie Tabor.
Staff would just like to make a quick announcement that just to note that the El Presidio garage closes at 8. So if, in case anybody's parked in there.
Okay, go on to I think this is the last speaker. It's again, same. Is there another letter you want to read? What is the last name again? Because I can't read it.
Trevor.
Okay.
Trevor. I know that's the problem with being a doctor. Your handwriting is an issue. Okay. This is a letter by Ella Tabor. Dear zoning commissioners, I am revising my initial letter of protest to include the flood maps with an alert system that clearly shows that the washes that flow through my home and surrounding horse properties. I formally oppose the case TPENT 1125-00023. Got it. Regarding the proposed rezoning of the 8800 East Jacaranda Way from Suburban Ranch from SR to RX1. As a resident of 8760 East Bears Path Road, a University of Arizona student pursuing a career in equine veterinary medicine, and a local horse owner actively involved in Tucson's equestrian community, I strongly object to this proposal and respectfully urge its denial. Even the proposed 12-lot division represents an overdevelopment incompatible with the rural character, infrastructure limitation, flood risks, and equestrian lifestyle that define the Tancaverity Valley. Traffic and public safety are already major concerns in this area. I think you've heard that a few times today. According to the applicant's own traffic analysis, Tancaverity Road west of Bears Path Road currently carries more than 31,000 vehicles per day and operates at a borderline level of service D. Additional residential density will increase congestion and create even greater safety hazards along the only practical route in and out of this community. These impacts are especially serious for residents involved in equestrian and veterinary operations. In both my personal and professional life, I routinely haul horses from my home to Bandolero and other equestrian facilities, as well to the Adobe Veterinary Clinic, which is up the road on Tancaverity. Maneuvering a 30 to 40 foot horse trailer though already congested high-speed traffic is dangerous under current conditions, would be dangerous under current conditions. Standard traffic studies fail to account for the spacing, turning radius, and safety considerations regarded for large live animal trailers, particularly when transporting injured or distressed horses. Recent road closures have already demonstrated how vulnerable the area is. During one closure, residents completely lost access to Bandolero and surrounding facilities. Had I been transporting horses at that moment, I would have been stranded with a live animal trailer and no alternative evacuation route available. There is currently no realistic evacuation plan for the equestrian community, despite the concentration of horses, boarding operations, therapeutic riding facilities, ranches, veterinary-related services in this corridor. The flooding concerns in this area make these evacuation limitations even more alarming. In a major storm event, evacuating hundreds of horses and livestock from ranches, boarding facilities, therapeutic riding centers, and private properties would be an enormous logistical challenge. Increased density and additional traffic congestion would only worsen these conditions and would create devastating consequences for both the residents and animals during the emergency situation. This area is home to some of the finest equine facilities in Tucson, including veterinary services, therapeutic riding programs, horse training operations, boarding facilities that serve the broader community. These long-standing agriculture and equestrian resources are part of what makes the Tinca Verde Valley unique and valuable. They deserve to be respected and prioritized rather than gradually displaced by incompatible higher density development. I am also deeply concerned about the worsening flood risk and stormwater impacts. The Tinca Verde Valley Creek corridor and surrounding washes already present serious damage, serious drainage and flood hazards as reflected in the county floodplain and flood alert mapping. Continued upstream development and the loss of open land increase runoff, erosion, and downstream pressure on the existing properties. My family has already experienced these consequences firsthand. We have sustained substantial property damage, erosion, and physical injury related to the flooding storm impacts in this area. During one incident, my father fell and cracked his head open. These are not hypothetical concerns to our family. They're real for those of us who live here. Continued higher density development upstream threatens the intensity of already dangerous conditions in places existing homes, residents, livestock, and infrastructure at greater risk. Given the documented flood hazards in this corridor, approved additional density appears inconsistent with responsible floodplain and stormwater management. Existing residents should not bear the consequences of increased runoff, evacuation limitations, and infrastructure strain caused by continued overdevelopment. Finally, this rezoning undermines the purpose of the suburban ranch zoning, which was intended to preserve the rural agricultural and equestrian character of the Tinca Verde Valley. Incrementally replacing SR zoning with higher density residential development erodes the environment necessary to sustain Tucson's equine community and future veterinary professionals who depend on it. I respectfully ask that you prioritize public safety, flood realities, evacuation limitations, and presentation of the Tinca Verde's rural and equestrian here by recommending denial of this case. By sincerely submitted, Ella Tabor. Can I say one thing? I would like to add to that. I really want to just say, I think all of us who live in that area aren't against the building. We would like people to stay within the zoning regulations currently there and not, make this bigger than it has to be to support us so that we can continue being that prize or that jewel of Tucson. So I hope that you hear what we're saying. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Uh, There was a question that I asked earlier, not to you. You can sit down. And it had to do with building height. And the gentleman in the black shirt, I don't have you as a card, but if you would, but it-
Signed up to speak on the roster. My name is Aaron Ford. Company there is here.
okay. Is there anybody else who signed up by email that I haven't called? Okay, you and just you. Okay. Okay, so Mr. Korf, go ahead and,
Hi, my name is Aaron Korf. My name is Aaron Korf. I live at 8951 East Bears Path with my wife. I have two decks here for your consideration. This will speak to the height and character of our neighborhood. My name is Aaron Korf. My wife and I live at 8951 East Bears Path Road. We live directly south of the Jacaranda property and are opposed to the rezoning of the parcel to RX1. May I see the page that I've turned it to shows the character of the Bear Canyon Woods neighborhood. All of the existing homes on the 46 parcels within Bear Canyon Woods are single-story homes, approximately 12 feet in height, with the exception of the two pictured below. They're technically two-story homes, but are still in character with the rest of the neighborhood and are far lower than the 30-foot high permitted in RX1 rezoning. The one at 9040 East Bears Path Road measures 17 feet, 10 inches, and the other one is just under 16 feet. We are requesting, and we still consistently ask for a height limitation as a condition of rezoning. To my point, my main point is I have two questions before we move on. Mr. Mazzocco and Mr. Blunt. One pertinent question is, does the zoning examiner have the authority to mandate homeowners association as a condition of rezoning?
I don't believe so. Well, that all depends, but I think in this case, and Mr. Blood has made this clear, when you have common area as part of the design of the subdivision, the common area has to have a owner, and it can't be the property owner where the common area is located. If it's located within a private lot, that has to be the homeowners association. So that just goes with how subdivisions are approved in just about any jurisdiction. When you have a common area, somebody has to own it, and it has its own assessor's number and parcel number.
So what guarantee is there that a homeowners association will be formed for maintenance of the erosion of the hydrology basins? Will that be mandated in the permitting process?
They won't be given their plat won't be approved unless they have that formed. But Mr. Blood probably knows better than I how to answer that question, if you would, Mr.
That's very critical for us because in times past, we understand that the city is held without harm in approving any of these designs. The maintenance has been a perennial problem. We've seen with the example of a couple of neighbors of ours that live below the commercial properties at Tanque Verde and Bears Canyon, that even though approved erosion control was approved during the permitting process, maintenance has been a perennial issue, requiring, in the case of Judy Dack's property, remediation that took over 8 years. So maintenance and the guarantee of a homeowners
Okay, why don't we let
association.
Mr. Blood, okay, I think we understand the problem that you're talking about, the basic problem. Mr. Blood, could you just say what is the city's standard operating procedure for homeowners associations and subdivisions in common areas?
So as you pointed out, that it is true. So the plat itself is a recorded document through the county, approved by the city, and it's a legal binding document that doesn't happen until, like you said, the homeowners association is formed, and it's there. When it comes to the maintenance of it, yes, they are liable. We do inspect it. When maintenance is not happening, we don't just send letter after letter and hope that it happens. We have follow-up inspections depending on the severity of the basin at the time of the inspection. And we have, if there's no response within that 60 days after we send the letter out, or after we come back to inspect it again, then we get code enforcement involved. And so it's not just an empty thing. Now, is every single basin in the city perfectly maintained? No, but we do the best we can as far as ensuring that the homeowners association, the businesses, whoever owns and maintains those basins are informed when they're inadequate, and we hold them to accountability as best we can.
So when you say code enforcement gets involved, the city standards for code enforcement, they can take it before a judge, I believe.
That is correct.
And the judge can make a fine or even jail time, I think, in very rare cases.
Yes.
Okay. So that's your answer.
Thank you for that clarification. We still express our concern about maintenance of any issues that would impact downstream effects onto properties adjacent to the Jacaranda property. May I say that I and 14 neighbors bordering the Jacaranda property assembled a petition of opposition and submitted it to the zoning examiner for the April 23rd meeting. Since then, we've continued as a neighborhood to work through issues with engineer Jeff Stanley and Carolyn Larrabee about our concerns. We had Jeff over to our house on April 28th to look at what he had proposed. We walked the property line. We pointed out 2 of the 7 proposed retention basins that sit directly on our property line and above our structures. These basins originally measured a staggering 95 feet wide by 67 feet high and 67 by 20 feet. We pointed out how his design would change the landscape. We counted the mesquite trees that would be pulled out for construction. We repeatedly asked Jeff if he could see a better solution to the hydrology problem than putting enormous basins directly on our property line. In the end, he deferred any suggestions until now, stating that his design was just trying to meet the calculations required for the rezoning proposal, and that those basins did what was needed. I think this drastically misses the point of this hearing. You cannot undo such a significant rezoning. This hearing and the zoning examiner's recommendation has a monumental responsibility that shouldn't be taken lightly. Changing the zoning from suburban ranch cannot be undone. This area has significant concern that we've already raised. Hydrology, sewer, and traffic infrastructure are already critically stressed. And given the developments of Mason Ranch to our north and the casitas at Mariposa to the east, we've yet to understand what these changes will do to the area on all fronts. On the one hand, we have assurances from the City Department of Transportation that traffic plans are adequate. We have assurances from Jeff Stanley that erosion planning is adequate. We have assurances from Pima County wastewater that current sewer is adequate. This all misses the point. You cannot undo such a significant rezoning. Yesterday, we had City Council member Paul Cunningham over to see the proposed rezoning with about 10 of our neighbors. We raised all of these concerns, the criticality of the hydrology, infrastructure, and emergency access, and he agreed with our concerns. He told us point blank that he would not consider rezoning of this parcel to RX1, saying there are too many projects going on in the area right now to consider another one right now. We agree. This area is too delicate, currently too fragile, and with too many questions left unanswered. You cannot put this genie back in the bottle after it is let out, and we vehemently oppose the rezoning to RX1.
I think we have one last speaker. Okay.
Well, I'm Steve Smith. My wife and I, Ann, we live at 8900 East Bears Path. All these people who are butting up against these drainage basins, well, we're across the street and we get to watch, the river going down Bears Path. A lot of my issues have been answered, so I'll ask Mr. Blood. My big thing about the maintenance. We heard Ms. Larrabee say they'll form an HOA and apparently it is required. My wife, Ann, pointed out, we know a lot of people, there are HOAs, there's 40 residences, 80, 120, whatever. As I understand this, Ms. Larrabee, she rents all her others. So these 6 plus her, that's an HOA of 7 people. And that is a hell of a small thing to spread out maintenance. So what's our guarantee? We lived here 33 years and we just touched upon, we get assurances and assurances and assurances. Oh, it'll be fine. And when there's a problem, that developer is long gone, or the person from the city of Tucson is gone. So I think that what happens 10, 15, 5, whatever it is, when the basins require maintenance, those 6 other people, they just say, we ain't paying it. Now, apparently the city will come and pimp them. Is anybody going to be put in handcuffs? Is anything, assets to be garnished, to pay for it, to force them? Or is there going to be a strongly worded letter? Or is it going to take 18 months of litigation and then appeals? So we have real concerns on this or what happens, HOA, when it finally hits the fan, they say the answer is, I wouldn't put much past Ms. Larrabee. Oh, we dissolved our HOA 2 years ago. What's the city going to do? So those are our concerns. I don't think those 7 people are going to be thrilled about paying for all that maintenance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we don't have any more speakers? No more, no. If you're first time, yeah, but we're not going to do seconds round. If you want, so what's your name, ma'am? Shiona? Okay, go ahead.
I didn't intend to speak because the people in our neighborhood are united so very strongly opposed to this development. But I have lived, my name is Nancy Farringer and it's the Farringer Wash.
Okay.
I've lived, I'm 90. I've lived there for more than 50 years, 55 years. So we've seen a lot of changes over the years, both to Tanque Verde and to Bears Path. And we have, if there's a rectangle of the proposed development, we are completely on one side of the development from top to bottom, about little less than 3 acres. It's just wooded and we've had horses. But what I wanted to say is it's very hard to describe our neighborhood adequately, but I happened to bring with me some photographs of the floods that we've had. We've had many floods over the years. I don't know whether I could see that this seemed to work. Would you like to see a picture or two of the floods, or does it matter really?
Do you have large pictures?
Yeah, they're pretty large.
Okay, yeah. Gabriel, come down and.
Okay. Yeah.
You want these back?
Eventually, doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just, okay, you're done. So I'm going to just take a quick look here and Mr. Stanley or Mrs. Larrabee, if you both want to make a comment. I think we've had everybody else speak. So the applicant has an opportunity to speak again. You're not going to? Okay. Yeah, I kind of get the picture. Okay. And thank you for showing your pictures. I have a couple questions though, for you. If I could ask. And maybe this is something you can think about, or if, so my understanding is this is under the Bear Canyon Neighborhood Plan, and the only reason this has come forward as a rezoning is it was compatible with the Bear Canyon Neighborhood Plan. Am I correct, staff?
That is correct. It's the same zoning.
So this particular property in the Bear Canyon Neighborhood Plan would allow RX1 zoning is as a proposal.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And you can't bring a case forward but because of state statutes that they say you can only bring a rezoning that complies with the plan that applies to it.
Yes, that is correct. Originally, the applicant was thinking about an RX2 possibility and would have to go through a concurrent amendment for that plan, but then decided not to go through that amendment and do the RX1.
So all these lots being in this proposal would meet the RX1 lot size, and some are slightly larger than the 36,000 square feet.
Correct.
And you currently have SR on the lot. If you take out the 6 western lots, how many lots, if you just were developing this as SR, would you be able to develop? 2? 2 lots?
Yeah, I think maybe 2. I don't know. What's the SR size?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I'm not sure the SR.
SR is 144,000 square feet.
Okay. So, but yeah,
I
2,
think it's about 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so
There's 11.2 acres total right now. So
yeah, and if you throw on 2 more ADUs per lot, you get 6 units.
Okay.
2 minor units and 1 primary unit. Okay. This issue of height. The last time we talked at the last hearing, Mrs. Larrabee said absolutely not on 16 foot, that you wanted to keep the 30 foot as the height limit on this proposal. Mrs. Larrabee, do you want to say something? Okay. 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 Oh, you know, it's better if you speak up here rather than there, because this is all being recorded. So I heard what you said. You were willing to go to 20 feet.
The 20 feet is fine, and I think that's a middle ground for me and them. And there are other 2-story homes in the area. There is one right there on Bears Path, not even a block from me. There's another, looks to be a tri-level from the pictures I took.
Okay, could you just give your name and address for the record? So
Oh, okay. My name is Carolyn Larrabee, and I am the owner of the property at 8800 East Jacaranda Way.
Okay.
And also I went and took pictures of 3 other 2-story homes on Woodland. So there are other 2-story homes now, but 20 feet, that's okay. I don't think that'll hurt.
Okay. The setbacks for RX1, and I'm going to ask staff this, on the side yards and the rear yards that would impact the adjoining properties, what is the current setback for RX1? Okay, the answer is 20 feet.
20 feet, yeah.
20 feet. And would you increase that setback where it adjoins the adjoining property lines?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
nobody's going to build their home on the very back of the land anyway.
Okay. So you're willing for some lessening of height and an increasing of building setback from the property lines of the adjoining properties?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. This is a question for Mr. Blood. Are you aware of this area being this major flood area that happens on some sort of regular basis?
Yes. So the whole area surrounding this parcel, as everybody's talked about, is, there is major flooding in the Farringer Wash, and, a lot of the surrounding washes around in the area are major concerns. And that's why this area is in what we call a critical basin designation. And this development would require a reduction in flows offsite, so that to mitigate, not solve the problem, but not make it worse. So
the one thing that you said about this property, if it were divided into a subdivision, at its current state, it has a baseline drainage off the property into surrounding properties and onto the roads or wherever it goes. But if it were developed as a subdivision, that baseline would be reduced by 15%. It would contain 15% of the runoff that normally would run off. Am I getting that right?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
It reduces the peak discharge, and that's what causes flooding. Is during your storm event, you have your peak discharge, and that's where your floodwaters come up high.
Okay.
The storm lasts a long time, and water flows a long time after the storm's completely done, right? And so, there's a time in the middle where you've got your peak flows at any given point of that watershed. And that is what we're looking at. When it comes in terms of the amount of water leaving the property, that's going to remain pretty much the same. It's just going to be stretched out and, detained on the site, stretched out so that it's not flooding anybody or increasing the flooding that's already happening in the surrounding area. There is a portion of this site that is in the 100-year floodplain, and any development in that or near that area would be highly regulated by floodplain ordinance from the city. But yes, the majority of this parcel is out of that floodplain and would only be contributing to those major washes and flooding areas. And so it's our job to make sure any new development coming in is not making things worse. And
a lot of the testimony tonight was this property and this development with this number of units is going to make things worse. And on many issues, but the focal point here I'm talking about is the flooding. Do you think that is a true statement? Is that something that you would make as a city official?
Well, that's our job, is to analyze both the existing and proposed hydrology for the site and to make sure that that's not happening. And so I would say, given the reports that I've looked at so far and that I'm going to look at in the future, that's my job, is to make sure that that's not happening.
Okay.
Because that is the concern.
Okay. Well, I understand there are other issues with transportation of the surrounding area, and I think the position of the city has been, yes, it's at level of service D, and whether this goes in or doesn't go in, it's still going to be level of service D. And that's a problem that the city has to figure out in the future for that entire area. And this is not the breaking point, the straw that breaks the camel's back, which is kind of what I'm hearing, is that this is just the point where it's all going to be coming apart. Would you agree with the city official that said, Yes, it's level service D with or without this development.
I can't speak to that.
Okay,
I
okay.
look at grading and drainage, and that's about
Okay,
it.
okay, that's fine enough. Good,
Sorry.
good, good. Okay, I think that would be what they would say. So, okay, I won't torture you anymore, Mr. Blood. You've been more than helpful in this hearing.
Okay.
So I think I've heard just about everybody. I don't do, second rounds. I think I've heard a lot from the two particular public hearings. You live in a beautiful area. I was able to visit it and I experienced your problems, at least a couple of them. So I understand that. And I understand the other side too. So this is something that I have to, take under consideration, and I'll do my best. And I thank you all for coming, and this public hearing is closed for the Jacaranda Way rezoning. Thank you all for coming. And we'll take a 5-minute break. Okay, for the folks from Jacaranda Way, you may want to go outside and speak. We're going to continue the hearing here. So, see, our next case. Where is it? Okay. This one, okay. The case is TP-MOD-0326-000028, Town West First Avenue. Staff report.
Thank you. So this is a request by Lazarus and Sylvan on the behalf of the property owner to, for a major change to the preliminary development plan and conditions for rezoning case C9-1903. The applicant seeks to revise the preliminary development plan and modify some conditions, allowing one overnight delivery to a proposed Aldi grocery store and future restaurant, with some additional conditions requiring on-site users to close by 10 and implementing design features in the Aldi kind of loading dock area to mitigate any kind of light or noise trespass from that overnight delivery. The proposal conforms to Plan Tucson and the Northstone area plan. And is appropriate for this location and compatible with surrounding land uses, subject to compliance with attached preliminary conditions, as well as an additional condition that the applicant has proposed after a communication with Ward 3 regarding plant palettes. Approval of the modified conditions and preliminary development plan is recommended by staff. For this case, we have received 4 approvals and protests from 1 property. None of those approvals or protests were within the notification area.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
Good evening, Carrie Sylvan with Lazarus and Sylvan. I'm going to introduce a few, thank you. I'm going to introduce a few of the people who are here today. I would like for Matthew Baca from Aldi to address you, and then I am going to try and go very quickly after he's done on the PowerPoint. And if there's anything I need to slow down on, you can let me know. But I think it's all pretty self-explanatory. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. So again, I'm Carrie Sylvan. With me tonight are Toby Horvath and Josie Larger from Town West Realty, which is the property owner. Matthew Baca is here from Aldi, who will speak in a minute, and Jackson Cassidy from my office. And with that, I'm going to ask Matthew to come up for a couple minutes, and then I will try and scream through the presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Examiner. Thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Matthew Baca. I am the Director of Real Estate for Aldi. Would love to give you a full spiel about Aldi, but I'll keep it very simple this evening. We are a small format select assortment grocery store focused on providing great value to the communities which we serve. We are planning to enter the Tucson market once we open our Arizona distribution facility, which will be sometime in the next several years. Once that gets under construction, we'll be able to more directly pinpoint our opening date. But we are in the process of acquiring some sites in the city of Tucson and the surrounding areas to build out a network of stores. We do already have one approved and purchased, which we own in the city of Tucson, and we're looking to add this and several others. If you have any questions about Aldi, our operations, this was 12 years ago on the operations side, but I have been in real estate since then, and certainly happy to answer any questions about how we operate or who we are if you've not experienced us elsewhere in the country or in one of our, I think we're closing in on about 20 stores in Arizona, including we just opened our second store in Mesa, Arizona today. And the closest store to Tucson is in Casa Grande, just up the road. Well, a little bit far for a grocery trip, but hopefully you get a chance to experience us soon once we open here in Tucson.
Thank you. And I have been to an Aldi in another state, so I kind of know what they're about.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm not going to go through this slide. You know where the property is located, what's around it. The only thing that I would add is that there is a pretty significant transportation project that's coming down the pipeline at first, and it'll come down Limberlost a little bit. And we have been working very closely with DTM on that to make sure that we are all aligned as the project moves forward. The zoning background is very well outlined in the staff report. There was a lot of history even before 2019. 2019 are the zoning conditions that we're asking to be amended. We got as far in 2024 with a modification at that time to the zoning conditions, including a full-blown development package approval for a Salad and Go. And then Salad and Go started to pull back in the market and never pulled the building permit. So the history, it was great because at the neighborhood meeting, there were a lot of questions and just understanding that history. And staff was very helpful in helping us figure that out so that we could explain everything that was going on. The bottom line is that both the original rezoning, 2024 rezoning, all had conditions that were right-sized for those projects. So what we're here before you requesting is a modification to the existing conditions to right-size it for this project, and having worked with the neighbors. I want to focus on this slide for just a minute, which is the preliminary development plan. The proposal is the Aldi's as well as a restaurant with a potential drive-through. Couple of things and the reasons that we are requesting the changes that we are. There's a little bit of a different architecture with the Aldi's than there was before. There's a rezoning condition that conditions the height at 18 feet and architectural treatments up to 24 feet. We are requesting 19 feet and then to increase the 24 to 29. I will show you elevations in just a minute. Aldi's very much is able to keep their costs low because their stores are formatted in a way where it's easier when it's a similar format. So inside because of the way that they need to format themselves inside for both the consumer as well as the operations, they need the outside roof needs to be, or building height needs to be 19 feet. Again, it's the difference between 18 feet and 19 feet. And we spoke very honestly with the neighbors about that need, along with the architectural treatment. The loading is another one. So there's a condition on the zoning that says no overnight deliveries. Aldi's, in order to bring forward any of their stores, they need one overnight delivery. That is to bring in fresh produce. They are very sensitive to being in and around neighborhoods. So they operate where the loading is going to come in off of Limberlost, come around the building, and then there's a depressed dock that you see in that never works. Sorry, in the area over on the south side of the building. The truck backs up. We're turning off the backup beepers, and it locks into the building. And all engines and refrigeration will be turned off. There's also the 4-foot CMU wall. So in addition to going down and being depressed, there's also the wall there on the south side. All of that is their regular design. And again, Aldi's goes into areas of high population and knows how they need to operate. We were initially requesting that condition be completely deleted, that we just be allowed to have overnight deliveries, not have that restriction in place. When we put in the application, we went ahead and right-sized that language to acknowledge a lot of what I just told you, as well as some additional conditions and staff's condition, which we're comfortable with, that really locks that all up in the conditions. One of the things that we had not addressed until after the neighborhood meeting was the restaurant loading, and that because per code, we don't have to have a loading area. Most of those trucks are a lot smaller. And the owner has tried to attract a breakfast type place, which the neighbors are interested in. There does need to be a sort of off hours overnight, at least one delivery. So in working with the neighbors as well as the Ward 3 office, We talked about modifying that condition so that each of the uses is allowed one overnight delivery, and both uses have to comply with the no backup beeper, and all engines and refrigeration be turned off. And again, that's all in the conditions, and we've agreed to those. The loading area for the restaurant, the front door is in the northeast corner of the restaurant, and that is where the loading would take place. So it's as far away from the neighbors as possible. For the landscape and screening, there is an existing condition that we are not asking be modified that increased the landscaping adjacent to the neighbors along the west to 15 feet and requires a 6-foot CMU wall. We are providing that, and the neighbor, particularly to the west, was happy to see that we were complying with that. The other thing we worked with staff on shortly before, a few weeks before this hearing, and want to thank Gabriel and engineering was very helpful. That western edge, it's a one-way and it's going to be loading trucks only. So on that yes.
Could you just orient me here? The bottom of the screen is what?
Yeah, I know. The top of the screen is not north. The bottom of the screen, so that the north arrow is to your right. The bottom of the screen is actually east. The top is west, and the left is
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
It didn't work very well on a PowerPoint the other way.
The long part that's on the left side of the site plan, what is that the restaurant?
Yes, that's the 2,400 square foot restaurant that's kind of in that corner. It's directly adjacent to Kaye, Arizona, and there is no access to Kaye, Arizona. Okay. So our only access is to First Avenue, which is on the bottom, and then Limberlost, which is over on the right.
Got it. Okay.
I apologize. I should have done that.
It's okay.
Talked about the landscaping, the loading, the access. Aldi's, I'll just add this as one operational point. Aldi's grocery carts, because this came up at the neighborhood meeting. It's a quarter system. And no, that's not a basketball term. You have to actually put in a quarter to get your grocery cart, and then you get your quarter back if you take it back to the grocery. Otherwise, you don't get your quarter back. And Aldi's experiences, that works phenomenally well because people want their quarter back. Especially today. So that is how they operate. One of the questions was making sure that, the grocery carts don't come off the property and are found in our washes and other places. And so that's their operational. I joke that that's how you'll know an Aldi customer, because it'll
Does Aldi provide quarters that you can get?
No. You have to come with your own quarters. That's how you know the Aldi's customers, because they're the ones walking around with the quarters.
Who still has quarters?
It's not pennies.
Okay.
I think that's everything. This is just examples of the architecture, and this is on the First Avenue side. So you can see it's a 19-foot is the roof line. It is the Aldi's architecture that comes up. The 29 feet is at the very corner, and that is at the intersection. So this is all stepping away. You can see, because it's an elevation, that the mechanical equipment is all in the middle of the roof, and it will all be completely screened. So as an elevation, we're showing it. I mean, as you know, when it's more of a perspective and you're further away and down, when that's in the middle of the building, you won't be able to see the mechanical equipment. And we can come back to any of these. This is over on we did the elevations from the two roadways. So this is now from Limberlost. So you can see the other part of the entry into the Aldi's. And again, this was to show the neighbors too that the difference between 18 and 19 feet is de minimis, and then the 29 feet is at the corner of the intersection. The next slides just run through the change of conditions. So DP, the preliminary development plan date, I mentioned we wanted to completely delete the delivery hours, but we went ahead and put in the language with all of those commitments, and come back to any of these. The architectural changes, We requested the addition of the closing to the public by 10. That also came from the neighborhood meeting. Aldi's closes at 9 o'clock to the public, and their employees probably take about another hour to get everything squared away and leave. With the restaurant, if it is something that stays open for dinner, we'd like it open to the public until 10. And they appreciated that we were putting hours of operation that wasn't actually on the original set of 2019 conditions. 15 is a condition staff added. We are very comfortable with it. It's everything that we're going to be doing at the grocery store. And then the condition number 16 was after the neighborhood meeting, we met with the Ward 3 staff and had a discussion with them, and they wanted us to commit to that limited plant palette. And so that condition is in front of you. I think I provided it and staff provided it to you. I have a copy. I don't really need to hand it to you because I think you have it with that approved plant palette. We had our neighborhood meeting. It was great. It was long. There were a lot of questions. Overall, there was a lot of excitement from people who have come from other places and really are excited about the Aldi's grocery store, excited that the property is being developed. It's been vacant for quite some time. We were able to answer all of the questions. They're outlined in our neighborhood meeting summary. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I scripted myself to go through all of these, but I don't really need to. And then we had the Ward 3 meeting on site, and that's where the plant palette kind of came up. So happy to go through these if you want me to. Otherwise, we're happy to answer any questions now or after the public hearing.
Okay, so you've seen the conditions that staff has put in their report, and you're okay with those conditions?
We are.
And you would add the plant list as an additional condition?
Yes.
Okay, is there anything else about the conditions or any? And this preliminary, the plan is the one that I'm seeing is the one that you're offering, and it's one that's being talked about in the conditions.
Yes, and that was the one that in particular, the date that's on that condition number 1 is the staff condition, or the preliminary development plan that also codifies the one-way along the west. Pedestrians will not be back there, and there will be signage that says it's for loading only. And the neighbor to our west wanted to make sure that it wasn't a high traffic area adjacent to his house.
Right, and you talked about increasing the landscape buffer on the west side too, and having a 6-foot CMU wall.
And that's an existing condition.
Okay.
I can't remember which condition,
Okay.
but I can find it. But it's an existing condition that requires that, and we are complying with that. And our preliminary development plan shows that.
Okay, I think that's all I have. So with that, we'll open it up to the public. We have Thomas Tunstall. Oh, okay.
Thomas Tronsdale, 1352 East King Road, Tucson, 85719. I also am the president of the Campus Farm Neighborhood Association adjacent to it. I'll make this very brief. First of all, we are very pleased with actually a very positive development on that corner. It's been vacant for as long as I can remember, and I've been in that neighborhood since the early 90s. And secondly, we really appreciate the efforts by Aldi's and their team to accommodate the neighbors from the neighborhood meeting. Most of the feedback has been very positive just for having an Aldi's, but people were really excited that Aldi's and their team really responded to the concerns of the neighborhood, especially the immediate neighbors, to accommodate any concerns they had. And from all the many projects I've seen, this has probably been the most accommodating I've seen a developer be towards the neighborhood and willingly do it. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Ms. Sylvan, I don't think you need to speak unless you want to speak, because what else are you going to say? Okay, we're good. Okay, so I think everything has been said that needs to be said, and I thank you all for coming, and I'll close the public hearing. It is what time is it? 8:19 p.m. And I'll have a preliminary report in 5 working days. Thank you all for coming. This public hearing is closed.